Welcome to the Downs College Soccer School Change in Direction for 2022. The program has evolved significantly since we first launched in 2015, and we believe that changing the way we do things to a degree will help the evolution of the program, but more importantly, will help the individual development of all players within the program. So at the current stage of our program, we have our current model. So in our current model, all of the players in our program train in their year level during the school day, and also after school, they train with their age groups. So year 7 boys, year 8 boys, year 9 boys, all train with their own respective age group for the first 3 years of the program. And then they merge in with the older kids. The same goes for the girls. What we've noticed and what we've observed over the first 7 years of the program is that some players excel, some struggle, and most are somewhere in between, where they have some gains and then they have some times of stagnation. And I think that's a normal thing for all kids, especially those that are going through puberty, in terms of how they take on new information and how much effort they put into developing themselves as a player. That intrinsic motivation is the key. What we've also noticed is that good players don't improve as much as we'd like them to, and also that some of the weaker players lose interest and the standard drops. And what we've also found is once those players that haven't picked up some technical elements that are very vital to their development reach a certain point in the program, they end up giving up the program. And we feel that the main reason for that is that they don't have the capacity to compete with the ones that are pushing on, that are combining their club training with the school program, plus all the extra work they do on their own at home. So when this happens, we get to a point midway through their cycle in the school, which is a 6-year cycle, that the standard actually starts to drop instead of increase, which is what we want to try and change. So the future model, starting at the beginning of term 1 in 2022, will involve players training with a group of players that reflect their current level. And the current level will be decided by the current coaching staff. And there'll be an opportunity, of course, for players to move up and down a level, which you'll see in the next couple of slides. The purpose of this is that the sessions will actually challenge all players equally. So some players require different elements of their game to be refined before they can move on to complex things or more complex things. And some players require those complex things immediately or earlier in their phase of development because they're ready to go and ready to do that, because nobody develops at the same rate. Movement into more advanced groups will depend on how much extra effort and commitment we get from the kids themselves. So you earn your place and you earn your level based on your desire to improve and the level that you put in. So again, this main shift is a data-driven one where we were able to survey 106 students from the 127 active ones that we have at the moment. And then one of the key questions we asked was right at the end of the survey in regards to doing something similar to this. Now, we'd already planned to launch this in 2022, but we also wanted to gauge what the field would be like. So as you can see, only 4 out of the 106 didn't like the idea. And that suggested to us that it was just more about them being with their friends. But 54% chose the following response, which is wonderful. I love this idea as it will make the sessions better suited to each player's skill level and give them something to strive for. The ones that were in the unsure were more about how people might be perceiving it as almost like a personal attack on them to be in a lower level, which is completely the opposite of what we want to do with this. We want people to move into the higher categories as quickly as possible. In order to do that, sometimes we need to put in a little bit of extra special effort to get to that point. So the challenge for us as coaches has always been to try and find the sweet spot for all of our players. So we have that zone in the middle there, the comfort zone, which we don't want anybody to be in, because in the comfort zone, the routine work doesn't challenge people enough, and therefore they get bored with it. And usually the answer is the solution to that is to quit. We then have the zones that we really want them to be in, which is called the proximal development zone and the flow zone. So in the proximal development zone, the challenge is suitably high with deliberate practice and focus points. And then in the flow zone, where we've got real purposeful practice that's constantly challenging the players to find solutions and to apply new skills to their learning. What we also want to avoid is the impossible zone, and we're starting to see when kids get to year 10 or 11, if they're not to a certain technical and cognitive and fitness level, then when they train with kids that are at a higher level, which we're starting to find is significantly increasing, especially in the boys and girls when they get to the Premier League Cup level of year 11 and 12, is that the challenge is too high and basically they're out of their depth. And that affects the rest of the training session, but more importantly, it affects them as players because they can't compete with people that are around the same age as them because purely and simply their level is not the same as their level, regardless of their age. So we've decided to go about it in a slightly different way from 2022 onwards with our after-school program, and we're going to break it into 4 categories. We have the foundation development phase, which is basically working on isolated functional technique, lots of rondos, lots of visual exploration activities on scanning, and working through 1v1, 2v2, 3v3, and 4v4s to develop more touches on the ball, more decisions in tight areas, and more work to refine skills. And then that'll flow into small-sided games and this very common European theme, which is called Fernino football, which we've done with a lot of the junior kids in the past. And they're basically small-sided games of 3v3 with 4 goals, and kids rotate in and out of the game. And in that time that they rotate out, they're actually coaching the other kids. So it helps with their understanding of space, of pressing, of time. The next phase is the intermediate development phase. That's the yellow one there. And that's where we start to increase the isolated technique into dynamic functional technique. So basically the difference would be there would be an opponent where a player should be able to find a solution in a 3v1 situation to further refine the skills that we've worked on in that foundation phase. There'll be more work on rondos. There'll be positional games where players are consigned to areas and have to operate within areas and understand space, angles of support, timing, movement, all of those things, increasing their visual exploration and their scanning, and overload games where they may have to play against, a team that has 2 extra players, or games with jokers and neutrals so you can find the spare player. Also small-sided games, and starting to increase from 4v4 up to 6v6 to add combination development where they start to react to one another. So a pass to the striker triggers off certain movements from other players in and around that area of the field, and also movements from defensive players to get their lines up, for example. In the advanced development phase, we're working more on positional games, overload games, visual exploration, and larger number games. So starting to hit into 8v8s with themed tactical small-sided games. So for example, one team might be set up in a low block, and in that low block, they'll be working on keeping the compact lines between the defenders close, active, and understanding when to come up, when to sit back, when to push on. And then on the flip side, the opponent might be looking to exploit the width of the field and create overloads through wide areas to stretch them out. So those kind of advanced development games can only be done once all of those previous 2 levels have been successfully navigated through, so that they can apply their knowledge in tougher situations. Finally, when they get to the end of the cycle, they should be hitting that senior performance phase, where we're basically preparing them for senior football. A lot of half-pitch games, 3/4 pitch games, sessions that are themed based on how we're going to play in particular competitions, or teaching them how to play different systems, using things from our Soccer Hacks webinars that we've done in the past to prepare them for senior football. And then we start to individually prepare them for their transition, hopefully from the age of 16, 17, and 18, into senior football ranks at their club level once they leave KDC, that they're actually prepared and ready for the environment that they're going to face. And there's a lot of work to be done in that phase as well. So if you look at it over the course of their 6-year journey, theoretically, they should be reaching that senior performance phase by the time they're in year 11 and 12. Some may get there earlier, and some will definitely get there a little bit later. And that's all going to be dependent on them. So if they're in the foundation phase, players will need to spend more time building those technical elements without pressure and with minimal opposition or no opposition before we start to add passive pressure, active pressure, and full pressure. In that foundation phase, we'll give them lots of homework tasks so that we can move them from this phase and into the next phase as quickly as possible. So the less we have in the foundation phase, the better it is for us as coaches, because then we'll be able to really increase what we teach them moving forward. In the intermediate development phase, players that have a technical foundation can then be building the next level of their development to add layers of knowledge, such as decision making, combination with other players, and understanding their role within a team environment. So in a 6v6 game, for example, when there's balance in the team with three people attacking, three concentrating on their defending, and understanding that the team has to regroup and recover collectively in order to work as a unit. There'll still be lots of homework tasks because we want to refine the technique and we want to push them and prepare them for the ADP, which is the advanced development phase. So in this one, to be in this phase, you'll be already refined with a lot of your technical elements. Definitely on one side of your body being competent at passing, receiving, dribbling, crossing, shooting, but preferably both sides. So we'll be looking at developing both sides of the body in those early foundation and intermediate development phases, so that by the time they reach this advanced phase, a pass coming to the left foot should see no different outcome than a pass coming to their right foot. By the time they're reaching this phase as well, we're hoping that their physical capacity and their fitness to compete for longer periods of time will have reached a certain point so that the intensity of the session is quite high for a longer period of time. This will then allow us to develop stronger decision-making skills in tougher situations, because as they get to higher levels of football, the biggest changing factor is the time on the ball. It becomes less and less, and the space to operate in becomes less and less if we look at the current global trends of how football's played. And finally, in the senior performance phase, they need to be physically prepared for demanding sessions. They need to be technically sharp with an excellent first touch, vision, scanning, and decision-making skills, and they need to be superb at 1v1 situations, both at attacking and defending levels. In the final stages of their preparation in this particular phase, we want them to be walking into senior clubs and making that senior coach take notice of them, either in the men's or the women's game at club level. Now, what level that will depend on all the other factors below them, the extra work, their genetics, and lots of luck factors as well, the club that they're at. Do they have a policy of youth? Does the coach want young players to play? But we want them to be competent. So if they're given an opportunity to train with the first team, that they can actually stand out and the coach will take notice of them and then maybe invite them back for more, then it's up to them. So from our point of view, we've prepared them as best we can for that phase. So just going back into it, in order to move up to the top phase, we're looking for the following characteristics in all of the students. They need to be positive in the sense of how they interact with others, in their engagement and feedback that they give to others, and in their reaction to a setback. The second one is the dedication and the willingness to train. If they're missing regular sessions after school, they won't be moving quickly through the ranks, because if they miss sessions with us, they're choosing not to show straight away that commitment to these following characteristics that are coming. The third one there is their resilience. So the ability to deal with a setback. If they start, for example, in the intermediate group and we find that they're struggling in that group and they're moved back down to the foundation group to refine some of their skills, are they going to be resilient enough to take that as constructive feedback and criticism so that they can move back up the ranks, or are they going to be discouraged and decide that they don't want to play soccer anymore, which we hope won't happen. But the reality is, in order to make a successful career in any sport or in education or in the workforce, you need to overcome setbacks, and you need to overcome regular setbacks in order to grow. The fourth one there is a non-negotiable across the whole program. That's respectful towards their teachers, towards the coaches that are working with them, towards their external coaches, to you, the parents, and obviously to all other students within the program. And the key one for us in terms of somebody's development is their willingness to learn from their mistakes and from the criticism, which is always constructive, to give them a purpose to develop. So not a personal attack, but rather a chance for somebody to improve themselves. The last one there is the ability to reflect. So the higher up that chain they go, their level of reflection should be to a point where they can sit down straight after a game or a training session and for 2 or 3 minutes think about what they just did, what they did well, and what they need to work on, because there is always something for them to work on. The key factors that we want you to keep in mind is the new setup is designed to increase the quality of all sessions, not just for the top end and not for the bottom end. We want every session to have the right level of player in that session so that everybody can get the most out of it. Secondly, it's designed to help you understand that in football, you compete every single day to keep improving. Every training session is a chance to improve and to show what you've learned. So when you move into high-end club football, if you do get to that stage, you understand the process of a professional athlete is train well, recover, train again, train well, recover, train again, train well, recover, play the match on the weekend, play well, reflect, prepare for the following week, and the cycle continues. The third one there is it's not a personal attack on you as a person if you are not in the group that you want to be in right from the start. It's more of a challenge for you to get to the level that you want to be in. So if we get to a point where we have 2 full groups of intermediate level sessions, perfect. We can leave the foundation stuff out because we've managed to achieve our goal as coaches and bring them up to a certain level. And we have 2 groups in the intermediate one, or maybe 2 groups in the advanced one. For us as coaches, that's a superb indicator that the program is doing what it's supposed to do, which is to improve each individual. Every person in the program remains valued, and every person has a maximum potential that they can reach. Now, we can't determine their genetics. We can't determine their commitment, their natural talent, how early they started playing and practicing, how much homework they do, and their willingness to take constructive criticism as a chance to grow and learn as opposed to a personal attack. We can't change any of that. What we can do is create the best environment possible for those students to realize that developing themselves as a person requires lots of small steps towards a bigger picture. And finally, we want to basically take as many as we can from that green section, develop them, prepare them, so that when they get to that senior performance phase at a school level and also at a club level, that they are closer to senior football, because football is all about adaptation to the next level. And the jump from junior football to senior football is the most difficult jump of all. Moving up from under 14s to under 15s is not that difficult to jump, even though at the time it may seem more challenging for kids. Or going from a small-sided half-pitch game to a full-pitch game is a quicker adaptation once they get used to the running capacity that they need to develop in order to be able to compete. But jumping from junior football to a performance phase in senior football, where people are playing for money, where people are playing for trophies, for relegation, for promotion, people are fighting for their lives, for their jobs in the sense of coaches, then it becomes cutthroat. And in order to prepare people for that, we need to start doing it earlier, but also at the right moment in their development. Finally, if you look at the picture of the banana, it's taking something that's quite green and raw and spending time with it until it ripens and gets to the point where it's ready to go. We hope that you understand now our model and our philosophy, and we're happy to take any questions moving forward in the direction of the Killer Downs College Soccer School for 2022 and beyond. Thank you very much.